Rev up your engines! All right, you think this car's falling apart. It's got 349,000 miles on it, but it's an 07 RAV4, original owners, original engine, original transmission. They got two 2007s. One's a Matrix, one's a RAV4, the fancier version. If you always wonder why they call them a RAV4, some of it really doesn't make any sense, but it was called RAV4 because Toyota saw they were a recreational activity vehicle with four-wheel drive so they can go off-road. This particular one is just front-wheel drive. Most of them are front-wheel drive. Now people are buying a lot more four-wheel drive. Somehow they got suckered into they need four-wheel drive. Bunch of baloney. Look, this guy lives in Ohio. He didn't have any problems with it. Two-wheel drive in the snow. My son had one in Massachusetts. You don't need four-wheel drive in most places. It's overkill for most people, especially with one like this. It's got a V6 engine. The engine and the transmission is in the front. All the weight's in the front. You're pulling with the front wheels. It's perfectly fine. Now, when they lived in Vermont, they put snow tires on. Here in Ohio, they're not going to be putting snow tires on. They also did in Colorado. Studded tires too. But it didn't need four-wheel drive. They didn't get stuck. You really don't need four-wheel drive in most situations. As old as this is, the owner just told me these are the original headlights. Look at that plastic. They made plastic better in those days. Now, sure, the lights on my Matrix, which is the same year, 07, look great, but those are aftermarket because the original ones fogged away. So you pay a little bit more for the RAV4. They used to make them a lot better. Now, this is a typical classic RAV4. As you can see, it's 07. It was made in Japan. That's what you want. Look at the interior. Hey, it's still in pretty good shape. Man. They took care of this vehicle. And yes, I'm not making it up. We'll turn the key on. Check out the mileage. 348,475. Now, does it sound like a bunch of rattling bolts started up? No, it sounds like a Toyota. Is it shaking? No. Everything on it seems to still work. Got some basic phone stuff, even though it's an 07. And of course, it's older, so it's got a CD player. For those of you who don't know what a CD player is, you got these discs, you threw them in there and music was on it. Well, we've gone past that, but it's still there and it still works. It's a fancy model, so it's got a sunroof. Still doesn't leak. And just like the Matrix, I sure know how to make these cloth seats. They're still in excellent shape. Now we'll go under the hood and we'll look inside. Almost 350,000 miles. That engine's still pretty quiet. It's not clanging away. If you watch that video I made last year in Rhode Island, there's a guy that brought me one of those stupid Dodge ProMasters that was just a rebadged Fiat little delivery van. That thing had like 4,500 miles. It was clacking like it had 800,000 miles on it. This thing doesn't make any noise at all. Now this has a V6 engine in it. Many of them had four bangers in them. A lot of them had four bangers. Four bangers are fine too, but he wanted this because he wanted more power. They travel all over the place. They lived in Colorado for a while. They're going up the Rocky Mountains. And they're excellent engines either way. You'll get a little bit better gas mileage with a four banger, but if you do a lot of heavy duty driving, especially in the mountains, you'd probably be happier with the V6 engine. It's got good enough horsepower. It's naturally aspirated. There's no turbochargers, no fancy stuff. Just basic fuel injection on a V6 engine and a transmission that still shifts really well. It has the original alloy wheels on it and they still look pretty good. And being the older style RAV4, it's got the spare tire on the back. I don't know, I just happen to like the spare tire on the back. You know, you got a real spare, it's on the back. Leaves a lot of room inside. You can see you got their pillows and everything for traveling. And you pop the seats down. You can throw a lot of crap in one of these things if you have to. Solid made in Japan vehicle. And just like my Matrix, you can make the back flat. And the owners have done that and slept in it when they had to. They do have a lot of room. I had a customer in Houston. They turned one into a little camper. Now it was only one person that was doing the camping to get the stove and everything in there. But, you know, they've got a lot of space inside. Now, he wants me to forecast the future, see if you can get another 300-something thousand miles. So, we're trying out this new scanner I got, this Autel, and we'll see what it says. We'll plug in and, hey, even the electric seats still work. Here we go. Diagnostics, auto detection. We got a Toyota. It's talking so we can start it up. remember this thing's got 348,000 miles on it. The tire pressure monitoring lights on it. It's got a code for that, so let's see what that is. And it says, data from transmitter ID5 not received. Well, that's a spare tire. That one's not working. The batteries wear out. This thing is what? 16 years old, right? So, of course, the batteries and the sensors are going to go out. Most people just ignore it. Check the tire pressure with gauges. That's typical in any vehicle. Everything's green. So let's check out the engine and ECT system. Live data. We'll see what kind of shape it's in. So start it up again. And we'll wait till it comes up to live data. Here we go. Short-term fuel trim. It's adding 1.5 to it idle. That's not bad for a car with that kind of mileage. Short-term fuel trim on a bank 1 is 3.1. So they're about the same, 2-3%. You're going to get some trim done on a car this old. And in this case, it's generally adding a little fuel because having 348,000 miles, the fuel injectors probably just won't spray exactly the amount of fuel. They'll be a little bit short, not quite enough fuel, so it's adding a small amount. And the air fuel sensor, you can see, look, 1 is perfect. It's pretty close. 0.998, 0.999. That's pretty close to perfect, which is, 1.000. Bank 1 and bank 2, they're about the same temperature, 284.1, 284.3. Of course, realize that is Celsius. Shows you the battery current with amps here. That's one thing you got to understand. If you're going to be looking at even an old Toyota like this, 2007, you get a nice scan tool like this Autel, you're going to get all kinds of data that you are not going to get out of other machines. Cheapo scan tool isn't me giving you all this data. These are serious machines for people who want to analyze stuff. So far, I do have to say, for a $369 scan tool, this thing is pretty good. You can see it's a typical Toyota. It's got 6-cylinder, and the misfire count is 0 for them all. Even though it's got all that mileage, 0 misfires. Looking at the data here, but if you're really going to work on your own vehicle, you can see these things can do quite a bit. All of the active testing it can do. Fuel pump, vacuum switching valve. Look at all the things it can test out. Control, valve timing, variable valve timing. Lock up the torque converter, activate that. Activate the shift solenoids. Look at this stuff. I mean, it kind of makes your head spin. Control all cylinders fuel. Look at what this thing can do. It's insane. The memory, reset your oil change. You can see how the air, fuel, oxygen sensors are operating. Now, I wish they had all this data when I was a younger mechanic. It would have made my life a lot easier. Maybe I wouldn't have lost as much hair pulling it out trying to figure out what's wrong with cars. But that being said, with all these mileage on this car, there really isn't that much wrong with the thing. So away we go backwards, no backup camera, so we gotta look. As we get going, you can see these aren't outrageously high, but they're nice high in the air. You get a nice view, and the windows all around, you can really get a good view of all around. There's not really any blind spots. Pretty well thought out window setup. And I mean, this V6 engine, you step on the gas. It's got plenty of pickup left, even with 349,000 miles on it. And now, it's an 07, so it's a little older. It handles fine. The new ones actually handle quite a bit better than these old ones, but hey, zipping around, you still don't feel like you're going to lose control. And the transmission itself, look, when you go to passing gear, goes down, goes up, still smooth, and the brakes work perfectly fine. No problems with that. Now, you can hear a little noise there. You're going to get bushing wear. Things are going to creak when you take corners. Got all this mileage. It lives in snowland its whole life. You might get some AT205 reseal or some WD-40 and spray all the bushings. We'll take it on a little highway where there's no one in the way. You can see people drive like maniacs around here. That guy was missing his front bumper. A car just the other day rolled over here in a ditch. Still handles quite good in the twisties here. I don't feel any particular oversteering, understeering. And when we get to our little drag strip here, we look, there's nobody behind us, so we can stop. And now, here we go. It still burns rubber. Hey, this is an engine and a transmission. Look at that. You got a nice high view of the countryside. You don't have to worry about speed bumps. Well, the only real downside I see in this vehicle, and it's typical with Toyotas, is the sun visor keeps falling down. Well, you can't have everything, right? Whee! And I do have to say, it's a lot more fun to drive with this V6 than the 4. People whine about the acceleration of the 4s. You're not going to be whining about the 6-cylinder acceleration. It's no turbo, just a plain old naturally aspirated V6 engine. Now, eventually, this is going to need a left front wheel bearing because I can hear it humming a little when I go. The noise changes. I can hear it getting louder when I go to the left. It's wearing. Eventually it's going to need replacing, but it hasn't worn the tires yet. And hey, if you've been spinning around for 348,000 miles, I guess it's time for a rest and replacement if you're a wheel bearing. It's still a very solid vehicle for cruising down the road. You want all that mileage on them. They know what they're doing when they build these things in Japan. So there we have it. Now the owner wanted to know, can he get more mileage out of this car, right? Well, if he puts another 100,000, it would have gone to the moon and back. It's got another 100,000 miles to come back, and it wouldn't surprise me if it did at all. Now, with the lower level of technology these older ones had, they can go this far. The modern ones, the jury's still out. You get turbos, high pressure. I really have my doubts that those things are going to go 300, 400, 500,000 miles. Most people think, oh, well, I'll get rid of my car before then. But why? Why should you when it still rides as good and goes as fast? Why should you waste money on a vehicle? Look at both of them. They still look good. They still run good. They still get good gas mileage. Why waste your money on another car when you get something that can last like this, that's got proven technology, that isn't gambling with you as a guinea pig? Well, that didn't work. Well, I guess we'll change that design and you're stuck with it. This is a proven design. You're looking for something that lasts. And let's face it, this baby lived where? In snow all the time. Colorado, Ohio. Is it rotting out? No, it isn't, because Toyota knows how to make these things so they don't rust. So now you know a little bit more about RAV4s, why they sell so many of these things, and why you see so many of them driving around. Now, I'm not a four-wheel drive fan, like I said earlier. I think you're throwing your money away in most cases. Snow tires on a front-wheel drive one are perfectly fine. You're going to get worse gas mileage in the all-wheel drive ones than you are in two-wheel drive, but that's up to you. Either way, they're well-made vehicles. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.